friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time, and I'm here for my regular Monday this and that video where I talk about many different topics, leading you back to some old videos, letting you know what's going on around here currently, letting you know of videos yet to come, and answering any questions that may have come in through the past week or so, and just whatever strikes my fancy to talk about. So let's get going on the topics of today. So dried meat. So let's talk about this one again. So I did buy some Italian sausage right here. I'll show a close-up of it. I should just get a photo like I normally would, so you can see there's lots of fat in there. So this is basically a trial run on this one, so I could try it, so I can share it with you. And what I'm going to do is let this sit maybe for a couple of months and see how it goes. I personally feel very positive I'm not going to have any issues with all that fat that I left in there. So how I did it was, because Italian sausage has a lot of seasonings in it, I didn't want to lose any of that flavor. So instead of rinsing it out really well with hot water and using cloth to dry it on in my dehydrator, I actually put it on the silicone mat so everything would stay contained as it was dehydrating. And then when it was all done, I put everything in here. The drippings are in there too, and those are dehydrated. And then the fat's not going to dehydrate the way everything else does. It's going to stay fat, just like on your eggs. When you're dehydrating eggs, you'll end up with oil on them. That's from the fat of the egg yolks. Just leave it. Don't worry about it. It'll store up just fine. And anyway, so that's what I'm doing. I've had many things, meats and other things stored with fat. As long as you vacuum seal, what that's going to do is vacuum sealing anything with fat in it is going to prevent the oxidation of the fats, which is one of the causes of rancidity in your fats. That, and then the other cause is heat. So keeping it vacuum sealed and in a cool area is going to prevent it from going rancid. So here's my reminder to everyone that the Native Americans used to always dehydrate meats, berries, and other things and then put them in fat. That's how they kept them stored through the winter. What is called pemmican is what they would make. And then also the hill people would, when they would butcher a pig or something like that, they would use the lard from that pig to store the meat in to get them through the winter rather than canning. They did that instead of canning. For whatever reason, there's just a lot of fear mongering going on about storing meats in fat and things like that, yet that was the standard way of doing things long before canning and pressure canning became a thing. Drying and then storing in fat. And even the hill people, I don't think they dried the meat, they just stored the meat in the fat. And then they had plenty of meat to get them through the winter. And then here also is, I got 4 jars of ground beef because I wanted to get more of this put up. And again, in this case, I did still drain the meat so I wouldn't have so much fat because this was a pretty fatty ground beef. But I didn't rinse all the fat off of it. I just drained it mostly and then put it on this, did the same thing with the silicone tray so everything could stay contained. Because when I put it on the cloth, then the cloth absorbs a lot of that fat, and then you gotta use hot water and dish soap to get it out. So this was a lot easier that way, in fact, and I like it better. So I got 4 jars. What this represents is a total of 5 pounds of ground beef. Now, one thing about your meats, your ground meats that is that when you dehydrate them, they don't shrink up as small as certain other things, but it's still going to save you space in your freezer. And I do still believe it takes up a little less room than just regular canning does. And you got a lighter weight jar because you don't have all that water in there, or broth, whatever it is you're using. So remember, you can dehydrate any of your meats. And then here's my other tip that I've mentioned before that I figured out since shooting that video a year or so ago on dehydrating chicken. When it comes to poultry, what I found, some people shared that if you pressure cook the chicken or turkey before you dehydrate it, it makes it dehydrate lighter and crispier and easier to rehydrate. But what I found just by accident was, normally what we do at Thanksgiving, we have a lot of turkey. I'll just freeze up a bunch of it in jars or my reusable Ziploc bags and then pull the turkey out as I need it to make various things through the year. Well, this year I decided to pull all the turkey out of the freezer, even that from a couple years back, and then dehydrate that up. And then I was thinking maybe powdering it, because you can powder those and it makes it easier to use in things. But what I found is, since it was previously frozen, it broke the meat down in such a way that when I dehydrated it up, it turned out very light and crispy, and also would make it easier to powder. And I did try using it in making a turkey gravy to pour over rice, like a turkey a la king, and it turned out great. Because it did have naturally want to just break up really small, you didn't have the bigger pieces like I normally have, but it doesn't really matter. You're still getting that protein, you're still getting that flavor in there, and it was great. So I'm probably going to be doing that from here ever after. It's going to save me a lot of freezer space, and I only have to use a little out of that jar at a time. And the chicken and the turkey does take up less room than this does, and definitely less room than when it's frozen. So that just saves space all the way around. So that's that on the meats, but I will be doing an update on the sausage. I do have a smaller jar, because I got this pint jar, and then I think I ended up with a half pint jar, because I think it was just a pound of ground Italian sausage, I think. Maybe it was 2 pounds, I don't recall. It's really tasty though. It's kind of hard not to even snack on it in its dried form. And then I did get a couple more organic pineapples, got them peeled up, got another batch of pineapple vinegar going back here. My first batch is back there. It's got another week or so to go. And dehydrated up another jar. Now when I do 2 pineapples, when I dehydrate it up, I end up with enough to fill up a pint jar and then another half pint. And so the pint jar goes back into storage, and the half pint gets used for just snacking right away. But these I plan on saving for quite some time, you know, because one thing I like about pineapple, because it holds that nice sweet and tart flavor, and it's chewy when it's dehydrated, and the flavor is so good. It makes a really good and healthy replacement for gummies, like gummy candies, if you like those kind of things. And boy, it's tasty. It's just a really nice and healthy snack. And then some other dehydrating projects that I've been doing this week. I'll be talking mostly about the things I'm now able to start dehydrating for the season. Obviously, I've been dehydrating for quite some time for the season, because the nettle is one of the first things, and then the comfrey and the dandelion flowers. But now I'm finally, it's just so tiny a little bit, I'm finally starting to get, I actually have quite a few honeysuckle flowers out there. I usually like to wait until they just start to open up the individual little buds. That's when I pick them and dehydrate them. One is because they'll dehydrate up better, but I don't like to let them sit out there open for too long and get too old, because they start to lose their scent, and I think they also will lose some of their benefits if you wait too long. So I wait until they just start to open up. And so that only just got started. And then marshmallow. So I did dehydrate up a bunch of marshmallow. I want to get at least a couple of jars of marshmallow leaves dehydrated up. And then obviously I've got the roots. I tend to use the leaves and flowers more than I do the roots. The roots I do use in my cough, cold, and flu syrup remedy. You can use the leaves. The leaves get used mostly in anything skincare related. So this is something I add to my infused oil for skin cream. So I go through a lot, because I sell quite a bit on the store. So I want to get at least 2 jars, even though I still have several jars from previous years I can work through. I'm working through it a lot faster now than I used to. So I've got to get at least 2 quart jars put up, maybe 3 of the leaves. So I'm getting started on that. And then I did, if you saw last week's garden update video, I did hack down all of my green onions and dehydrated them all. And what I do is I mix them in with the dried onions I get from Mother Earth products. And so it kind of makes a pretty blend in the jar anyway. And I just use this, I just toss it into whatever, whether it be soups or gravies, sauces, and so on. And it works really good that way. You could also rehydrate them separately and then add them to other types of dishes, but normally this is going to be something I add directly to something I'm already cooking, a liquid I'm already cooking. Just like the ground beef is mostly getting used in soups and in sauces. So I just put it in dry right into the sauce and let it cook. I love the dried ground beef in sauces much better than I do the canned ground beef. And then the other thing I got started on is my golden oregano out front. It's doing beautifully. Golden oregano is actually, I like it better than your standard oregano. It's a much more mild flavor, but the reason I like it better is it blends better in various different things. So it blends better with thyme and sage. than your Mediterranean oregano might. We think of Mediterranean oregano, we mix it with rosemary and basil, but this will go with any of them quite well because it has this nice mild flavor. And I found out that the fresh golden oregano, I just finally decided to try it, I don't know why I didn't think of it before, makes a really good tea. I actually tried mixing it with, I think it was mojito mint, and it made a really nice flavor. So I'm going to be doing more of that with the fresh oregano. Not that you can't use dried, but the dried is mostly going to be reserved for using in meals. Whatever meals I'm making that I feel like throwing the golden oregano in, that's what it goes in. So if you don't have golden oregano yet, no, I have not. I'm always harvesting mine. Have yet to let it get to a point where I can get seeds. Maybe this year we'll see, but the best way to find it when it comes to any plants like that is to try to get a start. So go to your local nursery, that's where I've got all my starts, and find out if they will carry, they can even special order, a lot of nurseries will custom order stuff for you. Oregano, golden oregano starts. It's a beautiful plant, it spreads nicely, it makes this beautiful lime green carpet and gold, and then kind of a gold color as well, depending on how much sunlight it gets. And it will add a lot more color to your garden as well. And because it's more mild flavor, it's delicious added to fresh salads. So it's one of the things that goes in every fresh salad that I make from the garden. And then I did just get started on the calendula flowers. So the flowers, my plants from last year that I grew from seeds last year are putting out flowers right now. The ones I started from seed right now, some of them are only this big, some of them are this big. So it's going to be a while before I get flowers on those. But this is actually the jar from last year that I just started working through. So I'm just topping it off with what's coming in this year. Then I'll start, once I start getting a lot of flowers coming in, once they all start producing, then I'll be starting a new jar if that one's not totally topped off by then. So, and then still putting up more mushrooms. So the lion's mane, I did order up some more, powdered it up. So this is for medicinal purposes. And then I didn't bring my jars in here, but I have like 5 jars. Actually, I have a jar right here that I'm working through. So 5-pint jars so far of a mixed blend of the Italian mushrooms and the gray dove mushrooms that we buy from a local young man that grows them and sells them. And now he's even selling them in our local store, so that's pretty cool. And a couple more things I wanted to mention is that, and sorry guys, it just has to be said, is that I recently heard about a shortage of feminine products, the disposable kind going on. And so I want to remind people that I have an old video on how to make your own feminine napkins. When I was still having my cycle, I decided to finally delve in and just make my own. I came up with my own pattern using an old flannel sheet, and right away from day one, I was so nervous that first day trying them out. I loved them. And then I modified them and kind of made them a little bit better through the years. But anyway, so what I'm going to do for those who are interested, would like some ideas on how to make your own, it's super easy. You can make your own shape, size, style you want. I'll go ahead and link to that video down below. I do recommend the PUL fabric for a backing. That makes them work a lot better. And then whatever liner, just plain flannel works. Get a bunch of flannel. You can use old flannel sheets, shirts, whatever. You don't have to buy that Zorb stuff. It can be more expensive, and some people don't like it at all. So you can just stick with more natural, all cotton fabrics are going to be better, and flannel's a great absorbent. And then I just wanted to let everyone know I'm not going to be posting any videos about this here on YouTube because they're so particular about this. It's been kind of something I was stewing on for the past few months on a video that has to do with the connection between the current C virus that's been, a thing for the past couple of years, and Epstein-Barr virus and the connection there. And a few months ago, I actually made this connection and started looking it up, and I was right. I was absolutely right in what I had assumed just because of what I know about Epstein-Barr. So I want to go into more details about that and then put a video out on that, but it's only going to go to Rumble. I'll let you know when that goes out, but I'm letting you know now because those of you, especially those suffering from the long-term issues with the brain fog, the fatigue, and so on, look it up. Look up the connection. And some of you might not even realize that 95% of all adults have already been infected with Epstein-Barr. And so most of us are carriers, most of us already have it, and all it needs is something to activate it to make you sick. And once you get that, which then ends up being mononucleosis, it can give you severe fatigue, and it can take many months to recover from. So I made the connection because of the symptoms of the long C, and then knowing the symptoms of Epstein-Barr, because I've been there, been through it myself. I made the connection and I was right. So look it up for yourself. It might be an interesting thing to find out. Every place that I found, right, within just seconds of looking it up, was a medical and scientific based site that proved just what I suspected. So anyway, just a heads up on that. And then the last thing I want to say is I'm not going to be able to get a garden tour video out this week, so I'm going to talk just real quickly about the garden, but hopefully next week I should have a more detailed video on the front yard garden area that I promised was going to come out this week. But things are moving along still. Some things still very slow because it's still been very cold. In fact, still having to build fires like maybe every other day in our wood stove just to take the chill off the house, because sometimes that cold just sinks clear to the bone, and I don't remember it staying this cold this late in the season. We're in the last half of June. It shouldn't be this cold. Thus, it's been taking a toll on a lot of my plants. But some things are still coming along good, so you should be seeing some pictures, maybe video clips right here. At least I'm seeing enough of good things happening out there that has really been helpful. But here's the main point I want to throw out there, is as we see our changing climates in the various parts of the world that we're from, those of us in the northern states and even the UK I know a lot of people in the UK anyway, are experiencing longer, colder season this year. And we've been seeing it getting steadily worse as the years go on. So we need to start thinking more about how can we better protect our plants and still be able to get a harvest. So looking at putting up more greenhouses, finding more protection. And those of you who are experiencing hotter weathers, that's what's weird. Some people are getting even hotter weather than what's normal. And so we're seeing these bigger extremes, which is really interesting to me. And so you're going to be wanting to look at shade cloth and other methods to protect your plants and use these times, even the failures that we're experiencing, as learning experiences, so we can better assess how we're going to prepare for next year and the year after that and the year after that, and realize that we don't know how long it's going to keep getting colder and colder or hotter and hotter depending on where we are. So we got to always be thinking ahead. So that's what I'm always doing, is constantly thinking ahead during this year, thinking about what I'm going to do next year different to be better prepared for it being even colder next year and having an even shorter growing season. So anyway, just some more food for thought there. And I promise next week I'll do a garden tour video for sure next week. And anyway, hope you enjoyed my this and that for the week. I'll be putting some links down below. Don't forget to click on either show more right down here below my channel name, or if you're on a smart device, sorry, dogs are in the other room barking, or the little gray triangle right over here on this side. And I'll open the description box to find all the links. And please share with us down below in the comments how things are going for you garden-wise. What are you still struggling with? Are some things coming along now? What things have you learned to do different or better to help increase your production, especially with the way things have been changing? Okay, well, thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.